Okay, A to J, 10 facts about the performance of the British Army in World War II. Often very, very controversial because the British Army, the background of it was that the UK, or Britain, was a democracy. And therefore, the soldiers tended to have more rights than, say, totalitarian armies, whether it's the German Nazis or the Soviet Union. Okay, so the fighting spirit was if you like, in question as a result of that. Okay, now some examples in Norway. Okay, so Norway in April 1940, we had a situation where the British Army had to be evacuated, poor equipment, not dressed for winter, even though it was already Easter, but obviously it was Scandinavia. So, for example, they had no skis and so on. The French army, for example, had skis and were better equipped in Norway. Okay, then obviously we had the debacle of May, June 1940, Battle of France. The British Army, two reasons really. I reckon it wasn't particularly successful. Lack of personnel. Okay, it was very much playing a supporting role to the French army, which was seen to be demoralised, and also inferior tactics, particularly regarding tank warfare. Even though we had experts who'd come up with, like Littlehard, ideas as to how to carry out lightning warfare, etc., we had tanks supporting infantry, whereas the Germans tended to have tank divisions separate to smash through and probe at weak points. Okay, so this sort of continued between 1940 and 1942. We have the Greek, or the withdrawal from Greece, and also Crete. Again, the British sort of felt that they were very much inferior to German forces. And this was also going on in North Africa with regards to Rommel, the Desert Fox, and the genius of Rommel. Okay, where the British soldiers felt that they had poor tactics. Okay, and leadership, which ties in really, and also, if I remember rightly, the tanks, the quality of the tanks were far inferior to Axis tanks, as it were. Okay, 1942, February 1942, in a different theatre, if you like, in effect, a huge humiliation for the British Army was the surrender at Singapore to the Japanese. Okay, was it 120,000 soldiers who surrendered, the biggest surrender in British history. Okay, it just sort of added to the feeling of incompetence in the early years of the war regarding the effectiveness of the British Army. Now, turning point has always been seen as El Alamein. Okay, obviously Montgomery's victory. Okay, and it was in, as we know, it was in North Africa. Now, obviously, there were also mitigating factors. The British by then had huge, or lots of supplies to their army. They had, an increase of tanks and weaponry and so on, and personnel. And Rommel was at the end of a long supply line. Okay, and his forces made up mainly of Italian soldiers who were seen to be less enthusiastic, if you like, compared to the German Afrika Korps. Okay, I'll just put Afrika Korps in brackets. Okay, which was probably under 100,000 soldiers. Now, even after 1942, British victories tended to be quite laboured on the battlefield. For example, the Italian campaign was a long drawn out affair. Okay, examples of battles where attritional warfare set in, so for example Monte Cassino, and the Germans had, if you like, as defenders in a mountainous area, they had the advantage in terms of over the attackers. Okay, so that was the sort of scene, and really and truthfully, what has overshadowed is always the performance of the Soviets, and also the US Army, to the point whereby predominantly that's down to the numbers involved, and therefore, they're going to sort of create greater history, if you like. Okay, so after the invasion, the Norman invasion of 1944, June the 6th, the Americans got much of the press due to the fact that they were the major partner in the Western Alliance, as it were. They outnumbered British soldiers by 2 to 1. Okay, and then there was the last card thrown by British officers in terms of, and that was Operation Market Garden, attempt to jump over the Rhine in, was it September, October 1944, and it turned out to be a glorious failure. Okay, and pretty much after that, the Americans ran the show in terms of decision making in the lead up to the final months of the war on the Western Front. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the performance of the British Army in World War II, as this is not including, obviously, the Navy or the Royal Air Force. Leaving that to one side, we're talking specifically about the Army. Thank you for listening, ladies and gents. I hope that was of benefit.